Okay, so on this number 1, okay, the first step that you would do is you would isolate your radical, right? Okay, but it's already isolated. So we're going to square both sides. Yeah. So this is going to be x minus 3 equals 15 squared, which is going to give me 225. Okay, so now we're trying to get step 3, which is to solve for our variable, right? So we're trying to add 3 to both sides. And that's going to give me x equals 228, right? Okay, now my fourth step is to do what? Check. A couple of y'all were like, I don't know how to check. Okay, so let's have this conversation really quick. When you check, what you're going to do is you're going to write down that original problem right there. Okay, so you're writing it down exactly how it's written. Okay, and then for this x right here, you're going to plug in whatever you just solved. So you're going to plug in 228 and 228 for that x and rewrite your problem exactly how it is. You need to check. That's your fourth step. You gotta check.
We have to?
Have to check. Because otherwise, if it's an extraneous solution, that could be no solution, right? Okay?
That's what that means.
What? Extraneous means the no solution. Like, it doesn't work, right? On some of those delta maths, you had one answer that worked and then one that didn't. Well, you don't put the one that doesn't work. You put the one that does. Does that make sense? Okay. And if they both didn't work, that's when you put no solution.
So you just put the one that worked.
Yes. Okay. So when we plug this in, guys, underneath the radical, that's the first thing you're going to do. So 228 minus 3 is what? 228 minus 3 is 225. And then the square root of 225 is 15. Yeah. And if you do put it in your calculator, you are going to get 15. So just be aware of that when you're plugging in. So if 15 equals 15, that's a true statement. Then your final answer is x equals 228. What you're going to do is we notice that the radical isn't by itself yet, right? So we've got to isolate the radical. Well, it's attached to this 3 right here. So in order to get rid of this 3, we're going to divide by 3 on both sides. Okay? And when we do that, we're going to get square root of 8 minus 4y equals 2. And the reason why I got 2 is that 6 divided by 3. That gives me 2 on this side. Why did I divide by 3? Because I want to isolate my radical. Remember, my first step is to get my radical by itself. Okay? So now our step 2 is to square both sides. Okay? So we're going to square both sides. So this is going to give me 8 minus 4y equals 4. Okay? When you square this, this radical goes away, and you're left with whatever's on the bottom, or like underneath. Do not change the signs. You write it exactly. Like, these are the same things, right? Okay? So make sure that you just copy it straight down. Now, we're still trying to solve for y. So we're on step 3, so we're going to get y by itself by subtracting 8 from both sides. And that's going to give me negative 4y equals negative 4. We're going to divide by negative 4 on both sides. So y is going to equal positive 1. Okay? So that was step 3. And now we're going to do step 4, which is to check it. Okay? And just for like organizational purposes, whenever you do checks, I would suggest writing down what you're plugging in. Just because if you have more than one that you have to check, you don't want to get mixed up. So I always put check and then I put y equals 1. So I'm going to write down the original problem. Okay? And then I'm going to plug in for that y 1, right? So 3 square root of 8 minus 4 times 1 equals 6. So the first thing we're going to do is what's underneath that radical, okay? So this junk right here, okay? So what's going to happen is negative 4 times 1 is negative 4, right? And 8 minus 4 is 4. So I'm going to rewrite everything else, and I'm going to write 4 underneath the radical. Okay, so negative 4 times 1 is negative 4. 8 minus 4 is 4. Okay, for those of you who plug it into your calculator, awesome, great. Just make sure that you use parentheses around everything that's underneath that radical. Okay? Square root of 4 is 2. So this will give me 3 times 2, which we know that 3 times 2 is going to equal 6, right? And does 6 equal 6?
Yes.
You dang Skippy. So, what is your final answer? Y equals 1.
Why do we do 3 times 2?
Why do we do 3 times 2? So when we take the square root of 4, that gives me 2. And we multiply because this 3 is multiplied by this radical.
Wait.
Oh,
Wait.
Yeah? So, what? Yeah. Let me pause this really quick. Nope, just kidding. Nope. Oh, okay. Okay. So, on this one, we're trying to isolate the radical. Well, the radical's already isolated. So what's step 2? Square both sides. Okay, so we're going to square both sides. Alright, when I square this side, x squared is going to give me x squared. Over here, it's going to be negative 8x minus 15. Okay, so all we've done so far is we've squared both sides. Step 3 is to solve. So we know that since this is going to be a quadratic, we're going to move everything to one side, and then we're going to factor. So in order to move everything to the other side, we're going to add, because those are both negatives. So when we add 8x, we're going to add 15 over here. So these will cancel out, and I'll be left with x squared plus 8x plus 15 equals 0. Okay, so I just put that in standard form. Okay. So now we're on to step 3, and we're going to solve for our variable. There are 2 different ways you can do this. You can either use the quadratic formula, or you can factor. I would suggest factoring on this one just because it's easier. So I'm going to do my x, and we're going to do a times c, that's going to give me 15, and my b is going to be 8. So what 2 numbers will make that happen?
5 and 3.
5 and 3. So when I write this out in factored form, this is going to be x plus 5 times x plus 3. But we know that when we solve, we're going to take both of these things, set them equal to 0, and we're going to solve, right? Yep. So that's going to give me x equals negative 3 and x equals negative 5, right? Sorry for my terrible handwriting. So that takes us through step 3. But now what do we got to do? We got to check it. Check. Okay? So, x is going to equal negative 3, and I'm going to plug it back into this original problem. So this is going to be negative 3 equals the square root of negative 8 times negative 3 minus 15. All I've done is I've taken the original problem, and everywhere that I saw an x, I plugged in a negative 3. Okay, when I simplify this, this is going to give me 3 on this side and negative 3 on this side, which negative 3 does not equal 3, right? So this guy is not going to work.
Wait, what?
Negative 3 does not equal 3.
Yeah, why did you like multiply 8 times 3?
Okay,
When you get
I did it.
24.
Wait, so when you plug this in, you're going to get 24. 24 minus 15 is going to give you 9. Square root of 9 is 3. I just didn't want that.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry. My bad. My bad. Yes. When I plug in negative 5, y'all are also telling me that it's going to be extraneous, right? So what is my final answer going to be?
No solution.
No solution. Or if you want to write no real solution, that's okay too. Yeah, what's up? So, first thing we want to do is isolate our radical. So we're going to subtract 3 from both sides. Okay? So that's going to give me r minus 3. Please, for the love of all things good and holy, don't put negative 3r.
Squared, that's why.
Okay? So, Now what you're going to do over here is get square root of r minus 1. Now we're still trying to get r by itself, or, we're on step 2. So we're going to square both sides, okay? And when we do that, we're going to get r minus 1 over here. And this is saying, please don't make this mistake, r minus 3 times r minus 3. So that's when you're going to have to multiply, right? Okay, a lot of y'all are struggling with this. So please make sure that you follow those arrows. R times r is going to give me, r times negative 3 is going to give me negative 3r. Negative 3 times r is going to give me negative 3r. Negative 3 times negative 3 is going to give me a positive 9. Okay? We're going to combine our like terms over here, which we can only combine these two. Okay? The reason why we can only combine those two is because there are like terms. And I always hated when my teacher said like terms because I was like, I don't know what that means. It's kind of like if you were grouping all the people who were wearing black shirts in this room together. Like if we put all those people together, that's what we would get. We would get negative 6. Okay? That would be interesting, but yeah. Okay? So now we want to solve. We're on step 3. So we're going to move everything to one side. Yeah? We're going to move everything to one side so that we can factor. So we're going to subtract r from this side because it's positive. And we're going to add 1 to the other side because it's negative. So we will get r squared minus 7r plus 10. Yeah. Negative 6 minus 1 is going to give us negative 7. We'll quit. We're not done yet.
Now we do the x.
Now we do the x. So this is going to be, the big X is going to be a times c. That's going to give me 10.
5.
Negative 7 is going to go in the bottom. What two numbers will make that happen? Negative 2 and negative 5. So if we write this out in factored form, we're going to get x minus 2, x minus 5, right? So when we solve, we're going to get x equals 2 and x equals 5. What's our last step? Check it. Go ahead and take a moment and try to check that on your own. When you plug in 2 and 5 to check, the only one that's going to work is 5, because 2 is going to give you a extraneous solution. So your final answer is going to be this x equals 5. You're not even going to talk about that 2, right? You're taking 5, and you're going to plug it in here. So this is going to give me 5 minus 1, which is going to give me 4. Square root of 4 is 2 plus 3 is 5. And that's what we want to equal on this other side.
Oh.
Yep.